thank you very much. I know I'm between you and lunch, so I'll make this interesting, hopefully. So back. So the most important thing is that we are really targeting ovarian inflammaging, and I think the audience here are very familiar with the word inflammaging in terms of aging. But what we're doing here is really targeting a particular organ in women, which is really your ovaries, which women never ever see in your life, but exhibit and feel everything that your ovaries does to you in your life. So a quick thing and a quick concept is that the ovaries are the first organ to age in women. I know the healthy longevity experts have other organs that you're interested about, but I will beg to differ about the thymus. But as compared to organ systems, the reproductive system is the one that do age first, okay, in women at least. And ovarian aging really culminates in the clinical or the physiological symptom of what women experience called the menopause. Okay, so and really menopause is really associated with increased risk of age-associated disease such as cardiovascular disease, sarcopenia, osteoporosis, everything that our longevity experts are all interested to talk about. And really, at least in women, what I can say is that the ovaries are really tightly linked to actually overall healthy longevity in women. And so this graph itself, I'm not sure it is a reality check for most women because you start your life knowing all about your periods, the first ever, and then you go through your entire reproductive years, and then you go into this phase, which is the perimenopause, and it's sort of linked with the chronological age, let me use the word age correctly, of 45 years and beyond. And usually by about 55, 56 years of chronological age, most women will reach the menopause. And then they live another 30 years of their life in the post-menopause. So this is not so fun because post-menopause is where you have all the aging problems coming in. And using Singapore, current home base, is that in 2030, 1 in 4 Singaporeans will be, age above 65. So it is a number that is quite scary. And again, we achieved the first. We are the longest lived already since 2017. But again, we are not the one that's living healthiest, which is why all of you are here to make this a better place for the world. So I think with that, the one important thing that, at least for women, I hope based on background is that, if we could target at least one biological organ, that at least in women, if we could use to make the ovaries last a little bit longer, if I can delay menopause, or at least make sure that the ovaries don't age so quickly, perhaps we can have a chance to enhance healthy longevity in women in general. I think what is interesting is that the ovary is actually a highly active organ in the body, and after the age of 40, very interestingly, you see that all the gene expression, this is, you can see that everything was very stable in the women during a younger age. The ovary seems to function normally. The gene expressions are quite consistent. But once women reach above age 40, and you see that there's large flux and fluctuations in terms of gene expression of various gene species. And this also shows that this is a period of time where perhaps, the body is undergoing drastic changes, perhaps from an exposome, everything, omics that you think about could be changing at this point in time. And really, we know that menopause, this physiological condition, is due to a drastic decline in one important hormone that women have, which is the estrogens. And estrogens act on all parts of a woman's body. Everything that our aging colleagues are also looking into is cardiovascular, glucose metabolism, not to mention infertility, immune cells, bone, lipid metabolism, muscle health, and systemic inflammation. So it seems that all parts of these organs have your estrogen receptors, which is what estrogen is acting a lot about. And this is where we know that when there's a decline in reproductive hormones and aging-related pathways, then aging in women starts to happen drastically. And just a recap, what ovarian inflammaging is about is really the ovary undergoing aging. And now this inflammation is not something that makes a woman have fevers and get really, really sick like what she has from infection itself. But truly, inflammaging happens at a level at the ovaries, and it results in other immune systems taking place like autophagy, which is happening all the time, apoptosis, atresia, mitochondrial dysfunction. I mean, everybody knows about this in all cell types, but in particular in the ovaries and the oocytes itself, this is where things happen. And every month, actually, a lot of things are happening in the ovary. That almost culminates like inflammatory response. So if I tell you that ovulation in women is actually inflammatory, because that's where the follicles grow all the way from here, and then when ovulation happens, there's a lot of interesting enzymes that needs to digest the follicles, release the egg out, and from the ovary, out of the epithelial cortex into what we call the fallopian tube, and then travels in the tube and hopefully meet the sperm and get a new life. So this is the part where actually the ovaries undergoes every month, if ovulation happens, inflammation, and there's also scarring that happens on the cortex or the covering of the ovary. So it's a very interesting concept because now we're talking about inflammaging, and this is actually a work that I would want to say is thanks to HLTRP mini grant, which given to Dr. Marek and one of my senior research fellow, Dr. Paula Benny, who actually work on this. And we are looking interestingly at follicular fluid actually from women who are undergoing IVF, those who are older than 35, up to about 42 years old, and compared to younger women, we can see that these women who are still seeking reproduction, we can notice that in the follicular fluid, which is a fluid that is around the egg that's developing, and during IVF, when I aspirate all these fluids, we check that actually there are variations in terms of some very important interleukins 1 and 6, which I think everybody is quite familiar with in terms of immune responses. And what we actually find out is that there's higher IL-1 and IL-6 levels in the ovarian follicular fluid of women who are just chronologically older. That means more than 35. I do beg your pardon, 35 is not very, very old, but in terms of reproductive age, it is going towards advanced maternal age. So I would like to qualify with the aging experts in the audience. This is, but what it's trying to tell us that already much early on in a woman's life, you can already see such changes as happening, and this is something that's interesting, and we really want to look into that further because the follicular fluid is just where the eggs are, so it's different from the blood. And so we need to know that certain and some of these analytes, because this is still relatively young women, we can see that certain analyte levels still remain unchanged in the ovarian follicular fluid. Again, we also see that a higher IL-1 alpha, IL-1 beta in older above 35 years old. And this is something interesting because we do see that there are a lot of the differences and variances between the younger and the older women. And what is interesting is that we see that they come from different compartments. So this is the blood plasma, and this is ovarian follicular fluid, and we do see that there is a distinct difference what you measure in the blood as opposed to what you see in the ovarian follicular fluid itself. We suggest that there could be a difference at the blood level, which is systemic level, as well as at the organ level itself. And really, as you can see here, very nicely demarcated would be the older women versus the younger women undergoing IVF and going through oocyte collection. You can see that actually the ovarian compartment seems to be very clean in terms of some of the inflammatory markers, and we can see that it's much higher in the older women. So this seems to suggest that the ovary really could be an early indicator before systemic changes has set in. So something that we are also looking at, because when we look at the open data set, agent from GeneText itself, we know that certain of these inflammatory markers involved in apoptosis actually changes as well. And we notice that if you could see over here, once it's the inflection point is usually about 40 onwards, and you could see that this goes up, and there's more changes and more noise around as an older age group itself. So a lot of us has pointed to the fact that some of these inflammatory changes has started in the ovary from a much, much younger age before she really go into chronological aging. And this has systemic effects already in the whole body. This is another one that shows that if you look at the skeletal muscle itself, you can see systemic inflammatory signatures when you compare very young women versus the women that have postmenopause for at least 10 to 15 years already. And so really, aging is really associated with inflammaging. I'm sure some of our colleagues here have you looked into a lot of this immunokines and stuff like that, but it really is the balance of this that eventually, hopefully, we can find other solutions that could ensure that the organ stays younger, longer, and healthier. So I think in summary, just want to show that ovarian health is still vital, especially in women, and it's linked to ovarian health, overall health. And we want to note that actually the AIDS-associated organ decline it's really, really something that's vital, because if we at least solve this solution, we got half the population looked after, and then we will look after men, of course. With women well, men will be happy too. And so we really need to look at, in terms of targeted interventions, which is what this conference is about, looking at every different aspect to enhance systemic aging, prevent aging and enhance systemic health. So we really need further biomarkers as well. This is something that I just want to share over here with this audience, is that when we look at aging studies in terms of male, female, I think the sex specificity needs to still be included, because menopause, as I mentioned, seems to drive a lot of changes, and which is why when you do large population cohort studies itself, men and women come to place. Age in the reproductive history makes a lot of difference eventually to what is an outcome. And so this is like almost a summary slide that we are trying very hard also to understand aging and all the longevity agents and what we could do in terms of, as well as protecting the ovaries. So more than meets the eye, so something that we can look further. And I would like to thank everyone. This is a lot of efforts put in, and I also want to thank the current work, which is supported by an NUS TRP mini grant, and Dr. Marek, as well as Numilex essays to get this work out here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We have time for a couple of questions.
Thank you. Yeah, very nice work. It seems that you have found not the solution but the problem. So what do you think are reasons for this inflammaging? Like this, what are some underlying etiology for the inflammaging?
Right, that is the crux. If I find the etiology, I would resolve everything, and all the women here will be super happy, and their men will even be happier. So I would,
at least you found the problem.
Yeah, I think one thing that's to be linked here, I think, will be what I feel when I look after women is the stress levels. And stress is very hard. I know some of our colleagues are looking at stress effects and effects as well, but there are always stress in every organ system. We should talk a lot about resilience, but once that goes beyond a certain threshold, that's where things comes about. And the other thing that I would want to find out more is that how does this stress culminate in certain behaviors and biological effects that in particular an organ, like the ovary, which I felt is not the primary target for the body to save every time, fight and flight response, is that the blood supply, oxygenation, everything will be reduced to those organs because it's not meant for survival. It's meant for reproduction.
I don't think it might be largely hereditary, like genes. So if you have women with inflammaging and women
Correct.
without in the ovaries, and if you look at their genes, it might be
genetically. So looking at an entire physiology aspect, it could be genetic changes that are amenable to environmental effects as well. And there's also this unique group of women, which I didn't show here, that we know since the time is that at least in Asian women, up to about 3% of women in the reproductive age group, they have their ovaries already aged before time. So they come to me already into their perimenopause, but they're only 35, 37, 38. So that's the issue here, because we know that these women have higher risk of morbidity and mortality. So it's all advanced just because their ovaries are aging way before that. So with this phenomenon, I feel that, what I'm looking now is just general phenomenon, not that unique group of women.
Hi, super interesting.
Thank
I'm
you.
Maxion here. So have you looked at data from women undergoing HRT? And when they start at different times,
Right.
their HRT, what happens with the inflammation profile?
That would be the ideal study to start doing, because a lot of times there have been some studies that shows that women on HRT, just epidemiological data have shown that women on HRT actually do better. In general, in terms of valid questionnaires, but in terms of biomarkers, for example, like muscle mass, metabolism, and the most important is the cardiovascular factors, right? All the blood, cholesterol, everything is superb. And me looking after women who are in menopause, when they're on HRT, I told them, you have to stop. You're on it for more than 15 years. You're high risk of stroke, They refused because they say, doctor, can I die happy and beautiful rather than suffering everything I did when I was going through menopause? So I think there is a cause for this, but we had to do it carefully. Yeah. And also, you determine when's the best time to start. because the other old studies from the Women's Health Initiative has been given a lot of wrong messaging out there, and they started too late for women. Yeah. And now there are more studies that shows that within 10 years of the menopause, if you start HRT and the woman is green and is supposedly low risk for any of the conditions we worry about, like breast cancer and whatnot, then actually this benefits to women could be felt.
But have you incorporated those in your study?
Not yet,
levels?
not yet,
Okay.
not yet. Yeah, but that would be the ideal moving forwards. Yes.
We have time for one more question. Everyone's thinking about lunch.
Yes, I think so.
Okay, with that, we'll just give a round of applause to all the speakers this session.